Hello, everyone. Our group found interest in physical disability, anxiety, and aging. We found importance specifically in the discrimination these groups face, such as ableism, which is defined as prejudice or discrimination against people with disabilities, and ageism, which is defined as prejudice or discrimination on the grounds of a person's age. So, this is our project. It is entitled Examining the Relationship Between Ableism and Ageism and if Trait Anxiety Can Predict These Biases. This project is done by
Shaylin Cruz.
Cameron Goff.
Abby Sullivan.
And Dante Vitale.
As we all know, all humans age. Is an inevitable thing that we all experience for varying amounts of time. Unfortunately, this is often associated with a natural progression towards physical disability and increased vulnerability to other health issues. This connection gives us reason to closer examine the biases against both age and ability. According to Vanderhorst and Vickerstaff, ageism and ableism share significant conceptual overlap. Some scholars even argue a portion of ageism is actually a form of ableism. This emphasizes the need to clearly distinguish and study both biases. Is there truly a connection? We aim to figure this out within our group of participants. Existing literature suggests that trait anxiety, which is anxiety as a stable personality trait, not just in response to a threat, be a crucial psychological factor related to these biases. Barker et al. Suggests that high anxiety levels can exacerbate a person's fear of becoming disabled. This can be a potential driving factor for negative attitudes towards disability. The present study aims to address a gap that we have found in the literature by directly measuring the relationship between ableism, ageism, and trait anxiety in a young adult demographic.
Our group came up with three hypotheses. The first hypothesis was ageism will positively be correlated with ableism. That means that students who hold more negative attitudes towards older adults would also hold more negative attitudes towards people with disabilities. Our second hypothesis was trait anxiety will be positively correlated with ageism, meaning those with higher levels of trait anxiety will be associated with stronger ageist attitudes. And lastly, for our third hypothesis was ableism will positively correlate with trait anxiety. We expect the ableism to also be related to anxiety. Disability can bring up worries about health, control, and unpredictability, which are already sensitive areas for anxious individuals.
The study was conducted via survey among psychology majors at UMass Dartmouth. There were 70 participants, all between the ages of 18 and 30. If you can direct your attention towards figure 1, you'll notice that there is a heavy skew towards female participation over both male and non-binary. Likewise, it was overwhelmingly Caucasian, with over half of the participants being white. Materials include the demographic survey conducted at the beginning of the testing, giving information on age, gender, ethnicity, and most importantly, when subjects perceived old age to begin, whereas the age that they would believe they would become elderly, so to speak. Next, we have the symbolic ableism scale, based off of a symbolic racism scale from much later on. This was developed in 2019 by Friedman and Aswam. 13 to 12 questions, where upon a higher score on the scale denotes higher likelihood of the person taking the test to hold ableist beliefs. Second, we have the state trait anxiety form, specifically Y2, which does test for trait anxiety rather reliably. And finally, there's the Fraboni scale of ageism, 29 questions meant to denote whether or not a person holds more ageist or less ageist beliefs depending on how high their score is, higher scores being more ageist beliefs, with lower scores being less. Due to the highly skewed distributions on gender and ethnicity, neither were included in any of our analysis. Point by serial correlations were run to determine the relationship between the symbolic ableism scale, STAI, and the Fraboni scale of ageism, as well as the testing of the start of old age, those two factors being people who believed old age began between 30 and 60, and those who believed old age began after 60. Spearman correlations were also run to assess associations between the symbolic ableism scale, the STAI, and the Fraboni scale for the continuous demographics. What was found is that there is a significant negative correlation between the Fraboni scale of ageism as well as when people perceived old age to begin. Additionally, there's a significant negative correlation between scores on the SAS and age.
The main unexpected result that we found was that ableism, ageism, and trait anxiety were not significantly correlated with one another. The lack of associations between trait anxiety and either biases is not in accordance with prior research linking underlying anxiety to negative views towards the elderly or towards disabled individuals. Similarly, the lack of relationship between ageism and ableism is not in accordance with the literature. In our sample of young adults, ableist beliefs, using SAS to be measured, decreased as participant age increased.
Even if still relatively early into adulthood, people may become more understanding and accepting of the disabled due to more development in empathy or otherwise broader emotional intelligence and maturity. Higher ageism scores were associated with the belief that old age begins sooner. Bias relating to the start of old age may pertain to how the perceived degrading of the body is, or otherwise its desirability. The further the start of old age is believed to be, there may be greater understanding and respect for the process and state of aging. Findings are restricted by a small relative sample size of the psychology majors and the limited range in age employed by the study. For further directions, increasing the age range may be beneficial to finding greater differences in how disability and old age are perceived, and a larger sample size and including a more diverse sample, such as in terms of different gender, may yield some insight on these biases.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. We will now like to acknowledge all the participants in our survey, Joy Artis, Solange Giard, the psychology department, and last but not least, Dr. Alves for all their contributions on this study. Thank you.